you?
Can I just say that intro is so mega? I hope we don't disappoint in the next like 30 minutes or so. It's like, oh my goodness, there's a massive intro. Now we've actually got to step up and do something. So yeah, but great to see you both.
It's a good intro. I feel like I'm like
intro.
dancing behind the scenes and getting all excited for boot camp, all about bringing the energy. So, it's great to see you, Pete. How are you doing?
You too. Very good. Very, very good, actually. In a good place mentally, and just making it happen and seeing what the clients are up to is mega, and excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, our absolute pleasure. And we're going to do a sales masterclass this morning. We know that sales are a big challenge because lots of bookkeepers in our community, we were saying it last night, you started a business, you probably didn't realize you started a business, you think you're selling a thing, and then there's so much that goes with that, including our confidence around selling. I've been watching your TikToks, Pete, and every time I see something, I'm like, oh yes, we need to talk about that. We need to talk about that. So really, really excited for this morning.
Brilliant. Me too. It's great to be here.
Great. Right. Well, let's get started. So we want to talk to you about building your confidence to sell. And one of the things we were talking about behind the scenes before we went live was whether we should package bookkeeping services. Is that a good place to start? Because
it might be a good place to put everyone off.
Yes, let's
start there. So I guess what I'll also do is do a bit of an intro for those who don't know me. I appreciate some of your bookkeepers have worked with me before. We've done this a couple of times now, haven't we? So it's kind of, I think, round 3 perhaps of this.
Yeah.
But it has been about a year since we did the last one. So we're definitely overdue. So my name is Pete Scott. I'm the founder of the Ultimate Sales Academy. I specialize specifically in helping service providers. That includes bookkeepers, it includes lots of salons, personal trainers, all of those things. But most of them get caught up in selling the service. And that's the issue, is that people buy what you sell. So if you've got a notepad and you're listening now, write this down. People buy what you sell. The problem is that what we end up doing is we end up selling the wrong thing. We end up selling the service. We say, well, the value is in the bookkeeping. The value is in sitting behind a computer and having an Excel document in front of me. But as we're going to find out today, if you don't know me already, that the value is not there because anybody can do that. You can delegate that to somebody else. The value is in your mind. The value is in your expertise. The value is in your uniqueness. And we're going to move that beyond the cliche, because I know every coach says that, be your authentic self. Well, that makes sense, but actually we need to be very specific because there's a process behind it. And so in essence of selling, so Zoe, just to answer your question, in essence, one of the things that I tell people not to do is sell packages straight away. Forget selling packages, forget selling services. By the way, I will state this, that what I've been known for over the years is sales, but over the last year, that's gone into a completely different place. And I appreciate I'm probably at some point due for a rebrand, because sales is a part of what I do. Actually, what I do is teach a completely different way to do business. And it's not for everyone. And that is 100% okay. But one of the principles that I teach, and I'm very passionate about it because it works, and I'm seeing it again and again and again, is move away from selling your time completely, because it doesn't make any sense. It's an old-fashioned way of selling. And what it means is that no matter how much money we make, we're still going to be caught up in the hamster wheel of selling time. And ultimately, services sold today is debt you need to deliver tomorrow. And we don't want to be in that kind of business. Imagine this, that instead of just forget the whole thing of, I'm going to sell you a package. And when somebody says, well, I'm going to pay you, say, £10,000. That might sound like a lot of money, but you're going to find out again today why there isn't a lot of money, and actually why we want to be selling for real money, not monopoly money by any means. But when somebody says, okay, well, what do I get, Zoe? What do I get when I pay you even £2,000 or say £5,000? The answer is you get my expertise. You get access to my expertise. We're going to put a financial strategy in place, and we're going to make sure that I'm not just doing the numbers game for you, because it's so much more than that. And how you position that is a whole different story. But yes, absolutely. There's 3 things we need to trust. And then Zoe, I'll pass back to you. Number 1, you've got to trust yourself. We've been conditioned to believe that we are not powerful as human beings, that everything is outside of ourselves. I went through this even a year ago, and we go through different levels of it. But I had a team of 5 people working for me. Joe, I know you know this inside out. The business grew very successfully. And I know Joe knows what was in the account, but then it all started to implode. And the reason for it, when I look back, is on the basis that I didn't realize the power was within me. So I'm going to link this back to everyone here, is that A lot of the time we end up thinking, I need to be a people pleaser to my clients. I need to work with everyone. I've got to chase the next client. I've got to keep everyone happy. And you end up exhausted. You end up in this where really when you trust the most important thing of all, which is, because that's what it comes back to. A year ago, I didn't, for whatever reason, I built something that I was then afraid to lose. And when you realize that actually, forget all of this, what matters is my expertise. And you bring it all, you scale all the way back to that. That's powerful. Okay, so you've got to trust yourself. That's mega. You're not there just to be, excuse me, I'm going to be blunt today, right? You're not there just to be doing somebody's books for them. Anybody can do that. That can be outsourced to a FreshBooks, QuickBooks, all of those things, right? I appreciate there's more to it than that. But what I love about Six Figure Book Club, Bookkeeper Club, is on the basis that you're teaching how do we go into this whole new stratosphere. So number one, trust yourself. Number two, trust the transformation you can create for your client. That's a big topic in itself, but you've got to trust that. Because if you're going to sell for thousands of pounds, you've got to trust that. And it's easier to sell at that level. And number three, and this is a big one, trust the client will buy. Because most people don't. The initial conversation, I say, well, why are you selling at 200 quid for when you should be selling for at least 2,000? My clients won't spend the money. Yeah, they will. Because people buy what you sell. If you're just selling bookkeeping, then people will buy book. See, my expectation for a bookkeeper is what, a couple hundred quid a month? I'll pay a bookkeeper that. But my expectation, if somebody's saying, hey, Pete, look, you're running a business, you're making money. The reality is do you have a financial strategy in place? And I say, no, I haven't got that. Okay, well, I'm not just going to do your bookkeeping. You're going to pay for my expertise and we're going to look at your financial strategy. All of a sudden that goes from £200 to being worth thousands. So that's the open. Sorry, back to you.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's amazing. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges for a starting point, isn't it? That we don't see that we're selling something beyond bookkeeping services because we've done our exams, we've got our licensing, and we're here to sell a service. And traditionally, that's how it's been done. And we go out and we say it's going to take us this much time, or you've got this many transactions. I'll do this. We're done. And we're not thinking bigger. So that has got to be our starting point. You've done this in your business, haven't you, Joe? Like you've gone from just providing that deliverable every month
for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and by listening to Pete, what I always go in with every one of my new prospects is I tell them the full service. Whereas in the past I might have gone in with I can do this for you. And then I'd wait for them to ask, well, can you also do this? And can you also do that? And then a lot of the time they don't ask because you've not told them. They assume you can't. And it took quite a lot now. So even with my smallest clients, when they come to me, or potential clients, I will share with them everything that's possible because they might not have ever heard of this. And I think you said something there, Zoe, which is so right. Traditionally, it's always been done this way. And I think a lot of us, and specifically the industry that we're in, is not seen as an innovative profession. It's always been done in this way, and we are taught by people that have always done things this way, and we're in practices that have always done things a certain way. So for us, who do we think we are to get our qualifications and step out there and change the way of an industry? But that's exactly what we want to do, and that's what me and Zoe and why we're creating this, because the industry needs to change and the industry needs to value bookkeepers a lot more, because they aren't just the transactions. They are the key to so much information and power for the business owner. But when we start out, or when we're having a wobble, things like that, it's hard to think about offering, like what is it that I've got to offer? We play it small, don't we? And we have that negative self-talk and that imposter syndrome. This morning the email that went out is when imposter syndrome meets the sales guru. That's what we're here about to do today. So yeah, Pete, how do you everything you're saying makes sense, but you think, and a lot of people here be thinking, yeah, that's fine, but that's not for me, because I'm not like that. I haven't got that. I'm not that. No one wants me. They want my transactions.
Ros has actually asked a question. She said, how do you tell them everything, even if they don't need it yet, without scaring them off? And it's that scaring them off is what we're afraid of.
Hey, Roz, it's so great to meet you. Thank you so much for your question. I just thought I'd let you know, because we probably haven't met or spoken before, but I'm really excited to say that I'm taking my business in a little bit of a different direction. It might be for you, it might not be for you. However, I'm going to be doing this moving forward. So I want to be upfront with you from the very beginning. And the reason why I say it might be for you or might not be for you is because if you do decide to work with me on this level, then there is a little bit more of an investment. Don't worry, it's not more than 800,000. I'm kidding. But we are looking at somewhere between, say, 3,000 to 10,000. So there's a range. However, the reason why I'm stating this to you is because I've realized I must work with a select group of clients. And I know that we've just met, but I feel that your inquiry coming in, the way it came in, I feel that this could be a great fit for you. If you want to have that discussion, we absolutely can. If not, that's okay too. Like that. That's how you do it.
So just explain that, everyone, and just learn that.
You have to, this is the thing, is that we're always scared of the elephant in the room. So call it out as it is. Just be upfront and do it in your lovely way. I don't teach scripts, I teach frameworks. So find your words, but reminding the client, or potential client, I should say, that it's their decision if they say yes or no, takes the pressure off. It's funny because people hear about me and they're like, oh, Pete, Scott, sales, it's going to be pressure. You know what makes me laugh? You know where the pressure is when you're selling those transactions at 50 quid or 100 quid a month. That's pressure, because you always need the money. You're always coming from a place of lack. You're always coming from a place of imposter syndrome, and it's exhausting. And I get it. And I'm not saying that my way is the only way. There's lots of different paths to success. And there's actually an accounting firm next door, and they take up about 2 floors, and they've got lots of bookkeepers, and they do all the transactional stuff, but they've delegated it to a machine. Makes sense? They've got a machine of bookkeepers. I don't know how many bookkeepers are in there, but at least 10, and they're in there with all their clients on a transactional level. If you are working as an individual, though, look, there's no right or wrong. The question is that how do you see yourself in your business? What matters to you? What's going to be fun? What's going to add value? And the chances are, if you're a part of working with Joe and Zoe, you want more. So it's time to start saying yes to that. So to answer that question, well, you just go through that little role play scenario, but be upfront. People ask me, when should I talk about money? This early? Hey, my name's Pete. Lovely to meet you. Just so you know, I charge between 5,000 to 20,000. I'm joking, but you want to be upfront, because if the longer we leave it, the more it's called an unsaid risk that manifests in the mind. Oh, this person seems and you're talking about what you can do for a client. They're thinking, oh, it's probably going to be more than I can afford. But if you're upfront with a smile on your face in your lovely way, you're actually saying, hey, Joe, this might be for you. It might be spot on. It might not be for you. I just want you to know that, and I used to do this when I did corporate consulting. I would sit down and say, look, before we even get into a conversation, I know for a fact that what we're about to talk about, when we get to the real problems and the real things that you need, they're not going to be within your budget. I'm more than happy to have that conversation with you or not. And they would always say, oh, well, can you tell me more about that? And then it's an open book.
Oh, I love that. One of the things I think people get really stuck on is that they feel they need to justify a price. Like when you go out and you say, this is what it is, and this is why, because I've done this and this. And this. How do we hold ourselves back, or what should we do in that situation? Yeah,
that's a really good question. The answer is never justify price. Number one, that's the obvious. But number two, you've got to, it sounds really cliche. I'm not going to be able to give the respect to some of these questions that they really deserve. But to give the initial answer, you've got to start stepping into your high value. What's high value for you? I've been told a few times, Pete, don't use the words high value. People don't like it, but I actually love it. And you've got to become your client's most trusted advisor. That's in my mind. If I work with someone, I'm going to become their most trusted advisor. They're not buying my time. They don't get a number of sessions with me, right? A lot of them don't even have access to me one-to-one, and they still pay thousands and thousands of pounds. But the reality is you've got to start stepping into that, whatever it is for you, being high value. Okay. For me, it's looking after my health. Really important. Coming back to trusting myself. I hit the gym every day because that's my thing, right? When I'm in the gym, when I'm eating right, like I don't eat until 2 p.m., and so I've got those small things. So I don't go out and preach it to everyone because that's my thing. For somebody else, it might be that, having time with your family, it might be looking after your dog or whatever. but start stepping into that is definitely key. Whatever's high value for you.
I think I'm sitting here, Pete, thinking about how I offer services and things, and I very much am pricing by service, and it works well to a certain degree because I've got a team and things, but you often talk about transformation, and we very much coming from the point of transactions. So
yes.
How do we change our mindset from transactions to transformation? And how do we have that conversation? Are we really good enough to create transformations?
Absolutely. Because we've just got to be specific in the problem that we solve. But here's a really fun exercise. I want everyone to do this exercise very quickly now, but I suggest you do it also beyond this. Okay, I'm going to give you 2 different questions, but they're very similar, but we're going to go one at a time. And I want you to, if everybody can comment, I can't see the comments right now, but if everybody can comment, this will be really useful. So question number 1 is this. If money was no object, what would you do for your client? That's question number 1. If money was no object, what would you do for your client? Just let that kind of process in your mind. If money was no object, they had an unlimited budget, what would you do for your client?
Oh, I'm waiting for the comments to come through. I love this.
All right. So question number 1 again, if money was no object, what would you do for your client? Question number 2, listen for the subtle difference. If money was no object, what would you help your clients achieve? If money was no object, what would you help your client achieve? So question number 1 was, if money was no object, what would you do for your client? And question number 2, if money was no object, what would you help your client achieve? One of those will keep you stuck forever in the hamster wheel, struggling and constantly people pleasing. Most of you need to fire some of your clients, work with a lot less. Yeah, but one of those questions, and let me ask this question, which one do you think will keep you stuck forever? And which one will turn you into exactly what we're here for, which is a multiple 6-figure earner, working by yourself, not even needing a team? Because that is the foundation of what I teach. So question number 1, what will you do for your client? Question number 2, what will you help your client achieve? We got some answers coming in.
We have got some answers coming in, and it's so interesting, isn't it? Because I suppose my thoughts are, what we tend to focus on is the question 1 stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Like, these are my services. You list it on your website. This is what I do. I do this and this, and you're trying to all the time to tell people these are the tasks I do. I'm really qualified. I've done some exams. I can do this, this, and this. But Laura, I think, hit the nail on the head for me, where she said, with number 1, I'd be taking away all their pressures and headaches because you're doing all the tasks that they're stressing about. But with number 2, it's about helping them achieve their personal goals and ambitions.
There you go. So now let's follow on from this. This is such a loaded exercise. So now let's follow on from this. Okay. Out of those 2 answers, which one's a lot more exciting?
Oh, the second one.
Yeah. Do you want to be like your shopping list for your client? I want this and I want that and blah blah blah, and I'm going to polish your shoes. I'm going to be your butler, and I'm going to do X, Y, Z. I'm going to make you toast in the morning, gluten free. Is that what you want? Do you want to live your life like that? And because we sell an expectation to the client, we're not selling we sell an expectation, right? So when you say, I will do X, Y, Z, blah, 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 that's what we call low value psychology, which results in low value behaviors. You cannot sell high value if you're showing up with low value psychology and behaviors. Okay. Question number 2, on the other hand, it's no longer about you. The pressure is off your shoulders. It's no longer what you'll do for them. It's now about, well, what results will help them achieve. Now, if we just go back, sorry, who gave the answer there? And what was the answer once again, sorry?
Laura's answer, there have been so many, everyone's going 2 now. Laura had said, I've lost it now. Oh, here we go. Take away all their pressures and headaches was number 1. Number 2, their personal goals and ambitions.
Okay. Now I'd imagine that to take away somebody's pressure, all their pressures and headaches, that would involve a huge amount of your time. You're now time poor. And by the way, I'm sure, the one thing that I've been fortunate enough in my life is to have money and not to have money. But the one thing that I've been able to stay rich with is my time throughout my life. I can always make more money, but getting time back's impossible. So number 1, you're selling all your time and you're going to be a commodity. And you take 100 bookkeepers, you line them up in a room and you say, what makes you different? And if they all say, I'll take away your pressure and headache, I mean, come on, that's exhausting, right? But you get one that steps forward and says, well, what I do is I'm going to focus on your personal goals and ambitions. And I'm going to do this. The vehicle that I specifically specialize in is the finance. And that's what we're going to look at. However, I charge 10 times anybody else in the room. Which one are you going to want to work with? And this is where it gets really interesting, is that what's easier to sell? Is it easier to sell your bookkeeping services because that's what everybody else does? Because people say to me all the time, Pete, I can't sell for thousands of pounds. I'm like, actually, it's easier. It's much easier, because the reality is if you're selling the technical work, because we all believe our value. See, when we talk about provide value to the client, we believe value falsely. We believe that value is our presence with the client. How many hours are in the office? Hello, I'm here. Look at me. Validation. I'm working hard. Okay. Versus, well, actually, the real value is how the client prospers. That's all that matters. Now, let me ask each of you on this call now, and I'm not selling anybody I'm not selling anybody anything on this call. But if I said to you, I'll do 3 days training with you, I'm going to come in and do a bunch of sales training. Would you all be excited? And then I'm going to send you, we'll work from 9 till 5. I'm going to cover X, Y, Z, and we're going to do 3 full days, and we'll put on lunch for you. That's how I used to sell sales training. But that commoditizes it, and it means that I'm just the same as everyone else. So do you want sales training, or do you want to completely transform the sales within your business so you're selling on a completely different level and you're stepping into your expertise? What would you prefer? Because the reality is that even, and this sounds overconfident, but I said this to my partner, Jamie, just yesterday. I said, no one can pay me enough anymore. If somebody could offer me, like, because I have companies that reach out still and they're like, can you come and do a day's training? And I said to Jamie, Jamie's in the room. I said to Jamie just yesterday, I went, even if I was offered 10 grand for a day's training, I'm not interested. I just, I used to kind of have an ego like, oh, my day rate is 5K a day or whatever. I just see it as all complete rubbish, right? All I care about is the result of the client, and that's nothing to do with me. And you can actually free up your whole time, because this is where it gets interesting. The more you charge, the more you reduce your time commitment. That's called freedom. And that's what a real expert will do.
So, but we've still got to get the work done, Pete, right? So we've still got to get the work done. But when we're charging for that transformation and you've got more money, you can have staff and subcontractors the work, and you're just results focused on supporting the client through that transformation, rather than you're not focused on making sure that the VAT return is correct. Absolutely.
You delegate the £25 an hour work. Eventually, you might not want to. You might say, I enjoy this, but if you enjoy it, that's okay, right? But you've got to start charging for the transformation, right? Now, we don't guarantee things that we can't deliver on. So people say to me, Pete, it's fine for you to teach sales, so you can guarantee that somebody's going to make another 100 grand. I never, ever guarantee that, right? But that's a deeper discussion. Maybe we'll save that for another time. But what we can guarantee is things like this. I'm going to help you put a strategy in place. No company. I haven't got a strategy for finance. I teach sales. Do you honestly think I'm sitting down with a strategy and doing X, Y, and Z? So nobody has a strategy. So when somebody, let's say you're charging 10 grand, right? You're saying, well, the reason why you're paying it is because we're going to put a strategy in place. We're going to diagnose where the real pitfalls are financially in your business. You're paying for access to my expertise. And I'm going to be your most trusted advisor when it comes to finance. That's what they're paying for. And that's worth a lot of money. Now, I'm going to give a very quick example here that we can all relate to. And it's also a problem that I've had for years, and I just still can't find the answer. I'm going to give you two professionals. They're both videographers, okay? Videographer number 1 charges 200 quid to do some film for you. Videographer number 2 charges 20 grand. You tell me which one you want to book. Videographer number 1, you say, and by the way, just to really put a spanner in the works, videographer number 1 is a better videographer than videographer number 2. So which one would you want? You say, well, he's a better or she's a better videographer. Surely I want the one for 200 quid. What if I was to say to you, let's just go through the scenario, then tell me. So videographer number 1, you're excited, you book them, they show up at your venue and you say, great, I'm going to get this amazing video done to promote my bookkeeping services. And they show up and they say, okay, what do you want to film? You go, I don't know, you're the videographer. You tell me. And they go, well, what do you want? Do you want this or do you want that? And you go, I don't know, you're the videographer. You tell me. You're an amazing, I've seen your work. Well, we can do it cinematic. We can do a vlog. And you're like, ugh, you know? Now, videographer number 2, this is where I'm really going to throw the spanner in the works, charges 20 grand. They approach you and they say, I can see that you're a great bookkeeper. And I can see that you've done a few videos before on YouTube and LinkedIn. And a part of your strategy seems to be growing your business through video because that's helping you stand out. However, do you mind if I ask, what is your strategy to grow your bookkeeping service, your bookkeeping business? And you say, I don't know. And they say, well, I specialize in helping bookkeepers to grow their YouTube channel. Yeah. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at how we can grow your YouTube channel to say 30,000 subscribers where you're getting 5 qualified to 10 qualified leads per week. And by the way, I'm not even going to do the videography bit, but I'm going to look at the strategy with you. And I'm going to work with you until we get 30,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel and 10 leads a week. But it's 20 grand. Which videographer do you want now?
Second one.
It's a no-brainer. And do you know what? I've employed, Joe, because Paul was doing his payroll, I employed a guy for a year as a videographer because I've not been able to find. But the reason what I used to get so frustrated with him, he's a great videographer, but he would always say, well, what do you want? I'm like, you're the videographer. You're meant to be the expert. Yeah. You tell me. The difference between the difference between an expert and everybody else is an expert tells you what to do. Everybody else, the client is bossing you around.
There's something about that low price. No, there's something about that low price as well, where you're like, are they going to have enough time to do this for me properly? Like, there's something about the disparity as well. Yeah, where you're like, am I going to be looked after properly? And can they really do it? So that was like a flag, but then you're probably thinking, oh my God, 20 grand, you know. Someone said there are a couple of questions that have come up so that I would love to raise if that's okay. One, somebody has said, this sounds amazing. I'm sorry, I can't see whose comment this is. If you're watching this and you haven't allowed StreamYard on Facebook, it would be really helpful for us so we can see your names and then we can talk to you properly. But it says, it sounds amazing. I really want to work this way, but I'm not sure if I have enough knowledge. What would you say to someone who's feeling that?
I would say that's probably an advantage because too much knowledge is a major problem. The funny thing is that somebody less qualified than you, less experienced than you, that's probably making 10 times the money because they focus on what they know, not what they don't. There's a great book called The Unfair Advantage. I forget the authors. I read it about a year ago and the whole book is geared around you've got to take advantage of your unfair advantage. And I used to teach everything in sales and I felt the same because it would be like, well, I haven't got the knowledge to teach negotiation skills, or I haven't got the knowledge to go into this big company. But then I realized that actually you don't want to be known for 10, 20 different things. You take what you've got, and an expert can identify patterns. This is very important. So for example, if you sit with any client, imagine this, you're sat with any client, what are the consistent patterns that they don't see, but you do? That you're like, oh, for goodness sake. So one of the patterns that I see as an expert is that I see that everybody's just selling the services and not selling the transformation. Like I identify that in like 5 seconds. Yeah. And I could sit with somebody for 10 minutes and probably change their whole business if they follow the advice. So what are the few patterns that you see? That's your unfair advantage. So you don't need loads of knowledge. And in actuality, I remember going into, I don't work with these sorts of companies anymore. Now I work all with service providers. But I went to a law firm a number of years ago in London, and I sat down with the CEO of the company. I don't think he called himself CEO, but he was the the founder of the company. And he said, well, what experience have you got of law firms? I said, none. And he said, so why should we work with you? We've got all these people who are from the law industry. And I said, look, this is your business. You're the CEO. You need to know all of this. I said, you see this bit right here? This little tiny bit here? I know this better than anybody. And it's the sales within your business. How are you actually, what's your focus on this? And you deal with all that other stuff. And he went, so you've got to be confident in the one thing that you offer. That's really key.
Oh my goodness. My brain's going over and I'm thinking, okay, so lots of people will come to us in our community and they're like, I need more clients. What do you say to bookkeepers that are in the community now thinking, the problem is I don't have enough clients? What do you say to them?
So this is not to go against what you and Zoe teach. I say you need less clients. Most people need less. Yeah. The fact is, so most people teach fill the diary, get fully booked. I teach the opposite. I'm like, empty the diary, trust yourself, lean into that. And I'm not saying you go out and fire all of your clients, but the reality is, and this is how I teach everybody in every industry who can offer transformation to their client. Let's look at it this way. Imagine this. In fact, don't just imagine it, write it down. For everybody on this call right now, the chances are they've got 2 or 3 clients. Is that right?
Yeah.
Everybody's probably got 2 or 3 clients.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great. The reality is that's all you need. Okay, I mean, it's nice to have more, but the fact is that the more clients we have, sometimes it creates a problem because we're just amplifying the issue. If we're undercharging, then when you get more clients, you create a bigger problem. That's what most people don't realize, because now you're more stressed out, you've got less time, and you're still not making any money. But actually, if you get it right from the core, so what I mean by that is you can let your clients know in the most lovely way. Say, hey, Joe, Zoe, I'm so excited we're on this call today, and thanks so much, because I know we've been working together for a couple of years. I wanted to let you know that I'm taking the business in a slightly different direction. We can carry on this relationship how we are, but I wanted to let you know because we've been working together for a couple of years, and I'm now going to be serving a few of my clients on a deeper level. And what that means is that we'll be looking at strategy. We'll be looking at me being your trusted advisor. I know that you see me that already, but that's why we want to have the conversation with you. If we do decide to take this route, it might be for you, it might not be for you. However, if you want to have a discussion of what that looks like, I'm totally open for it. Now, imagine if one client took you up on that powerful solution, like, wow, I can really create a transformation. Now, this is an interesting thing. So I've done this in a lot of industries, personal trainers, beauty therapists, some bookkeepers. But imagine this, that just one client takes you up on this. They're like, yeah, I'm up for some of this. But then now you're already enjoying the work. You're being paid properly for it. You're in profit. So now you've got a bit more time. And then guess what will happen? You've got to invite. This is what people say to me, Pete, where do I find these high value clients? You don't find them, you create them. They're already in your world. All you need is 1 or 2 clients to say yes. And the chances are you've probably got 1 or 2 clients that, and please don't do it straight after this call. There's more work that needs to be done here, right? But start to get your head around this concept. And then guess what happens? And this is everybody that's been doing this for 6 months or a year or more. What's happening is that once you sell it once, you're like, I'm never going back, right? I remember my first £1,000 sale. I had a bit of a joke as a personal trainer, my first £1,000 sale. The first thing I said to my colleague, I'm like, I'm not going back again. And then I made my first £2,000 one. I'm like, I'm not going back again. Then the first 5K one, you know what I mean? And like, how in the world can I ever go back? So, but this is what's happening. So I've got a number of beauty therapists at the moment, and they've been doing it for a while. And they message me nearly every day. I get at least 1 or 2 messages being like, oh my goodness, Pete. Like one of my clients, she said, she went, bloody heck, Pete. She went, I don't even need to look for it anymore, because everybody's heard of it. She said, she woke up the other day and she had a text message and an email from complete strangers saying, I want some of this transformation you did for my friend. And I know that it's 5,000 euros. She said, I made 10 grand in the morning before I even got out of bed. But we're so conditioned that we need to do challenges, that we need to do, show up on LinkedIn every day, that we need to, keep doing all this stuff that just isn't even important. Like, I'm really active on social media. I love it, but I can switch it off and not really care. And it doesn't impact my business negatively at all. But, you know, to go viral, like to keep pushing to go viral on LinkedIn or YouTube, whatever, for 99.8% of people, it's a exhausting burnout strategy.
Yeah.
Focus on what you got.
So if you're going to, so if people in this room now listening and watching you and thinking, yes, I want to come up with a solution that transforms my clients' businesses, lives, and works towards their goals and ambitions rather than transactional. How do you sit there and map that out? What's kind of the process that you go through? How does someone come up with their transformation?
Sure. It is deep work. The first thing is to say it's not going to happen today. Go for a long walk after this session, unless you're on another bootcamp session later in the day. Okay, but go for a long walk and realize, number one is what the questions that we asked earlier. What can you help your client achieve? That's all that matters. Start learning about, I mean, all of you should know this already. Value-based pricing strategy is the only pricing strategy. Forget competitor-based pricing strategy. I don't even look at what other people charge. I don't care, right? And that's what I teach. Do not even look at what other people are charging. Don't go based upon cost-based. Don't weigh up your hours. Okay, I've done this many hours. So you've got to start by saying, what's the solution I want to provide for my client? Yeah. And then from there, it comes down to a few things. Number one is that if I was to be the trusted advisor for my client, and specifically what would be my bag? What do I love doing? I love sales transformation. You can probably tell I freaking love it. I love the results that people get. I love how they have breakthroughs. I love how it's a completely different business model that actually blows out the water of what people have done before. But what is it for you? It might be something really like, let's just ask a question for all of your clients. If you're listening now, for your clients, have any of them actually got a financial strategy in place? And when you hear that, they're probably all reactive, and they're probably like, and that's why they just use your bookkeeping services, because they're like, oh, I'm totally reactive, right? So if you could help your clients in more depth with something to be more strategic, what would it be? What would that look like? And that's powerful. You want to be sat eventually in their like board of directors meeting being like, this is, you know, and what are the patterns that you would like to see in their business? So I've got a few things. Here's a few things that I teach that are my patterns that identify. First of all, stop trying to be fully booked. Yeah. Empty the diary. Free up all your time. So you only deliver the actual technical work one day a week. And the rest of the time you're focused on all the big stuff. Yeah. It's easy to sell high value. These are the principles. Have less clients. Sell the transformation, not the package. And so they're my few things. And I used to try and do everything, negotiation skills, and I still do that for fun, but it's like my core things. What are your core 2 or 3 things? And this is really important. Each of you have got a unique way that you help clients and need to start seeing that as valuable. It's called your unique methodology. Okay.
Oh, I love this. I love this.
That's where the value is at. Sorry, go on, Zoe.
Someone's posted a question, and which is, how do you stop attracting the I can't afford that client? And it feels like it is this combination. It's getting this right and this messaging right around that very focused way of working.
Yes. Yeah. So again, a really good question. So again, it's a journey that we go on, and it's about realizing that it's just so much. If you say there's 500 quid for anything, you're going to start to ask a lot of questions about what do I get, blah, blah, blah. So you're attracting the wrong sort of clients. But if you said it's $5,000, now it's like, oh, you're an aspirational brand. But you've got to state your position from like start, and it's a process. Start to state your position everywhere. So if you look at my social media, and feel free to add me on social media, join my free group, Ultimate Sales Bootcamps. It's a free group I've got on Facebook. But you will see across my social media that it's very obvious that if you want to work with me, you're going to have to invest a significant amount of money. Okay. And so you need to start being more upfront in your way, in your style. I'm not asking you to be anything different. If you're not like, if you're very calm and quiet, that's okay. You can still be that, but you can be very clear. You can say, well, I help clients on transformational level, and make that clear on your LinkedIn, all those places. This this is who I am. This is what I offer. This is my specific way that I help my clients. Then you can go another layer deep. These are my boundaries. See, most of us don't have boundaries. We're replying to a client on a Sunday night. Why? Like if a client messages you at 6 p.m. on a Friday, you reply on a Monday. You do not reply on the weekends, right? So I say to my members in my academy, and they all pay a lot of money to be in there, and now it's invite only. We only have 100 members. I don't want it to grow. I actually shrank it. I've been physically telling people to leave. Some of them I've kind of kicked out the door, a few, because otherwise it's not worth your bloody energy, right? It's not. But the thing is, though, is I let them all know. I'm like, look, you've got to start being selective, okay? Clients can sniff desperation, but equally they can sniff selectivity. And we should start running our business and working with clients how we would decide to date. And unfortunately, for some reason, we get into this whole place of lack. We end up like a 17-year, excuse me, my language here. We end up like an insecure, horny 17-year-old, right? Just anybody, like, you know what I mean? Like trying to date everyone, and anybody who say yes to us, maybe this was me at 17 years old, totally insecure, right? I had girls at 17, 18 years old who were blatantly not interested. And I was leaving Christmas presents on their doorstep, right? They were like, come meet me. And I'm like, okay, you know, like going through that people pleasing because I didn't see my value. Does this make sense? And I look at it in the business world, we've become that. Like, but by the time I was 30, I'm 41, just turned 41 last week. But by the time I was 35, I was extremely selective. I didn't want a girlfriend. I wasn't interested. I just became, and I didn't become hard, you know, because you get, every extreme becomes the opposite. You get these people who go, I'm not interested in dating anyone. And you're like, well, look how frustrated you are, right? It's like the people who say, I don't care about money. Clearly you do, because you're flipping angry right now, right? So it's this whole art of detachment. And this has been it's an ongoing journey. Joe, you know that I even went through a little bit of this in my business last year, because my business went from here to here. And then I felt I had something to lose, because then I had a team of 5 people working for me. I had all this stuff, and I'm like, oh my goodness, we've got, and that. So I became a people pleaser again. So it can raise its ugly head, if that makes sense. Okay. So sorry, I forgot the question, because there was a point to this.
How do you stop attracting the I can't afford it clients?
Yeah, so it's the whole thing. Don't be desperate clients. I'm serious. Like when you lose the need, I said this on my Instagram story yesterday. It might still be on there. When you lose so something happened in my life only about 6 months ago. Can I swear? Right? I've got to a point. I don't give a shit about money. You know, and that's whether I have money or not. I don't give a shit. I don't care about what car I drive. I don't care about people pleasing. I don't care if a client doesn't like me, they can go. And it's been the most liberating experience of my life. And it's taken a lot of deep inner work and a lot of BS that I've had to go through to get to that point. And I realized if somebody had told me that, and it actually, because people tell you that all the time, but it doesn't go in. So everybody on this call, I don't want you just to hear it. I need you to hear it. It needs to hit here properly, because until it hits there, you're going to keep people pleasing. You're in this business to help people. And this is the golden rule. If you're sat with a client and they have to want to be helped, the moment somebody doubts you, stop the conversation. The moment they doubt your method, stop the conversation. The moment that they start asking too many questions, stop the conversation. And you can do it in a really lovely way. Be like, hey, I appreciate you might have a lot of questions. I'm happy, Joe, to answer all of them. I just want to refocus on the reason why we're here, and that's you and your goal. So, Joe, can we go back to your goal? Why is it important for you? You see what I've done? I've just taken power back. Yeah? Because otherwise, you let the client talk about all these different things. They're going to do this, and then they go, oh, I can't afford it. You're not in the convincing business. You don't walk in a Ferrari garage and say, I can't afford one. They tell you to piss off. You need to show your bank account details. You need to show what's in your bank account the moment you walk in the door at Ferrari. You might not like Ferrari as a brand, but you have to prove that you are worthy to own one of those cars. So be an aspirational brand. I know this might sound like a lot and this is work, but it's worth it. Because you know why it's worth it? Because your happiness is that important. I've been there, Joe. You saw me go through this.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking loans and racking up credit cards just to keep your clients happy, and rather have less clients, rather say, listen, this is what I'm about. This is what I'm passionate about. You don't need, people say people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. That's rubbish, right? You're already likable. You don't need to, most of the time we only try and be likable. Just be trustworthy. I don't care if somebody likes me or not, as long as they can trust me. Oh, Pete, I don't particularly like you. Okay, good for you. But do you get my method? Okay.
Love that.
But you do it in your lovely way. It's got to be like an inner thing. We've got the lion with the crown over here. Okay, a lot of us wear the crown externally, trying to be like, but actually a bit of wind comes along and it falls off. You got to wear it on. You got to have it on the inside. You got to breathe that in every day. It's really important. And a lot of us, we're not doing that. We're showing up on social media being something that we're not.
And it's so hard. It's so hard to keep up that, that false pretense when you're not, that's not really you. And that's what we often say, Zoe, don't we? That like who you are is your unique selling point. Just be more you. Just
my goodness.
Like warts and all, everything, know, and that's why, my social media, I don't have a strategy. I'm just me. And whether that's whatever I want to share, whether that's going for a walk with the kids at the weekend, or whether that's dancing in my kitchen, a bit tipsy. My job really on my social media is to repel people that are never going to work with me.
Absolutely.
Since I realized that, it's so much easier because I don't have to make anything up. It's just who I am. It's just me. Yeah. But I definitely had a couple of sales calls yesterday, and if I'm honest, one of them I was having the chat, and I'm very much tuned in to my kind of like internal vibration of I just got this little.
Are you right for me? Or are you going to be a nightmare?
Yeah, and there was a lot of money on the table potentially. Still wasn't worth it. It wasn't. I don't think it was worth it. So, and I was like, but it might be right for somebody else. So Absolutely. What I now and I love that we've got a community that we have, because now I'm like, I get excited. Then I want to know more about the opportunity because I think it might be right for somebody else. It's not right for me, and that's the beauty. And we're seeing more and more of that. People actually saying, and I saw a couple of these posts yesterday in our group. I've had a sales call. It's not the right fit for me. Anyone interested? This is what this is. And I'm like, oh my good, this would never have happened 2 years ago when we first started this community, because people were very much like, what, even if I hate it, even if I cry every day, I need that client. Whereas now people are realizing that there's so much more at stake, and our happiness needs to be the number one focus. And helping the client. If you don't get on with somebody, you can't help that client achieve that transformation.
Yeah, your client should be someone that you can hang out and have a coffee with. And I realized a year ago, like the businesses grew so rapidly that I started bringing in people that I don't even like as a person. I don't even want to see them again, let alone have a coffee. And I was having to see them on my calls, and I'm like, oh, it's you again. Goodness, and guess what happened? They turn into complete shits. And it's like, what? This isn't worth it. And the funny thing is, in my 20s, when I was a personal trainer, I owned this big time because I only worked with a few clients at a time, and I was selling $8,000 personal training, right? And I'm like, if it's not for you, then no. And I'd always say, I only see couples. No, well, no, my husband, he doesn't. I'm like, well, tough. And I would always joke, they'll be like, well, I'm single. I'm like, go get a husband, come back. And I'll work with you. So I really owned this in my 20s, but for whatever reason, I think it was just the rapid growth of the business. When I reflect on it now, hindsight's always 20/20. You can go back into that child ego. You can go back into that insecurity. And the reality is that you've got to come back to your core principles. That's what matters. And a lot of us we've never even had that conversation with ourselves. Like I know very much what my core principles are, and I stick by those. Like one of them is my health and wellness is number one. And time with my partner. We don't have kids yet, but time with Jamie, like all these simple things, hitting the gym every day, like focusing on, like, that's my thing. right? Well, I don't have kids. I'm going to focus on help, but it might change. That's fine when I have kids. And I know that I'm not a shit person. So I know that I don't need to pretend to be likable. And I've done I mean, the amount of stuff that we end up doing. We ran a 3-day program, and spent, I think, 15 grand on making it the best program. And guess what happened? People still complained.
Yeah.
The last program cost us 3 grand and people loved it. They loved it. So the whole thing is, you've got to lean into it and know that your real value is not anything outside of yourself. And ask yourself, if money was no object, what could I help my client achieve? The value is in how the client prospers. So get this, to throw this out there, right? Imagine the scenario: you get a potential client, and they're willing to pay £100,000. They reach out to you. Yeah. They reach out to you and they say, I'm going to pay £100,000 to work with you. But there's one rule. I'm your coach for this particular client. And I say, great, but you're not allowed to sell any of your time. You're not allowed to go and see the client. You have to work the entire project from home. How do you handle that one? Because you know what, when we hear that, most of the time we think, oh my goodness, 100 grand, I've got to be in their business every week. The reason why I'm saying this is because I recently had a similar, not 100 grand, but certainly up there. And they said, well, when are we going to see you? I said, never. I said, you're not paying for my time. You're paying for the result that I'm going to help you achieve. And I'll achieve this better from home. So I sold a contract into a company in London and I don't have to go and see them.
Wow.
And they're like, well, that's not how we work here. And I said, well, then we've got a problem, because this is how I work. Whereas, very quickly on this, I had a consulting client years ago, and they were paying quite a lot of money on a retainer. They were paying $5,000 a month on a retainer. Okay, great deal, right? But you know what I did wrong? I sold to them that they would get me a day a week in their business. And you know what happened? The middle management started to resent me. They saw the invoices that I was sending. They saw that I was getting, and they were like, look at him for 1 day a week. He's on over £1,000 a day. And it became a big issue. So now I'm not interested at all in selling time. And you know, that's definitely the way forward for everyone.
Oh, it's amazing, because I think we're conditioned, because a lot of us have been employees in the past. Most of us haven't started out always being self-employed. We are conditioned to do something related to time. So it's like completely breaking that down. I love everything you've said about values, understanding our worth. I agree, like being authentically yourself makes a massive difference. Us growing this business, like Joe and I joke that Joe will like share everything. I don't think she overshares, but I think she overshares. And whereas I've in the past been quite like reserved and tried to like not share everything. And actually I've learned that actually the more I can do that and the more I show people behind the scenes, the better it is for growing our business as well.
Absolutely.
So we know like being yourself makes a difference, and we don't have to sell transactions anymore. And I'm really excited to see what how people change the way they think about their businesses. So thank you so much, Pete.
My pleasure. Thank you. And just as a kind of final message as well for everyone, like just trust the process. Like, I appreciate that what you might have heard today might be like, whoa, like, but you owe it to yourself. It's not even you owe it to your family, your dog, your partner. You just owe it to you. If you keep showing up to Zoe and Joe's sessions, and you're obviously here for a reason, you've got to trust that reason. And also bear in mind, if you were already who you needed to be, you would have already achieved what you want. So it will mean your own personal transformation. Like I've accepted, I know we live in a bit of a funny world today where we can't say certain things, but the reality was that when I went through all this stuff last year, I accept the one thing I had to accept in myself is that I had to be more. And being more didn't mean more people pleasing. It actually meant less. Being more meant taking care of the most important person in my business, which is me, right? I know that I'm a good person. You need to know that you're a good person too. If you're listening to this, start tapping into that little zone of genius, which can become a big zone of genius, right? If you love to bake, it's your favorite thing in the world, share that. Maybe when you take on a new client, send them a cake. Maybe when they have a birthday, send them a cake, right? Like, make that a part of your brands. But it can't be something that you just invent out of nowhere. And that's where we normally go wrong. Oh, in order to add value, I've got to come up with something I've never done before. No, you're already it. That's the whole thing. Be more of that. So worth it.
Oh, got goosebumps, Pete. That was amazing. And the comments are coming through thick and fast. Everyone has absolutely loved the session. And just so that everyone knows that sometime in the summer, we will be doing something with Pete that you can come and be a part of and have even more of Pete's expertise, because we have absolutely loved the session today, Pete. And I'm like, you've got me thinking completely differently as well. And it goes to show, doesn't it? You know, we're always a work in progress. We've, you know, I've thought about these things and I've implemented a lot of things in my business, but there's always something else we can do to leverage our time back, get some more time back, because inevitably, the more clients we take on, or the more staff we have, or, you know, we grow in some areas, and sometimes we forget and we don't focus on, you know, us. And I love what you said about, you know, being more authentically ourselves is a massive selling point. And I'm absolutely. Thank you so much for
Thanks
today.
for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you. Let me share your details so everyone knows how to connect with you.
Yeah.
So where's the best place to connect?
Connect me on Facebook. That's all good. It's a good place to start. And then also I've got a free group called Ultimate Sales Bootcamps. I'm going to be changing the name of the group soon, but for now it's called Ultimate Sales Bootcamps. It's a new group that I started just because I want everything in one place. So anybody who's kind of coming into my world, rather than saying I've got this, then that, it's just one place. I put a lot of value in there, and everything we've been talking about. If you just scroll through there, it's a bit of a, you know, I guess a masterclass in itself. There's plenty of posts in there and interactivity. And don't just join the group and be a lurker. Join the group, engage, add comments, not because I need the validation, but because by getting involved, you're going to get so much more from it as well. Yeah, just great to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much, Pete. I love watching Pete on TikTok as well. I love your videos and your lighting. I'm always like, Pete, how are you doing your lighting? So definitely a lot of value on there as well. Thank you so much. Thank you for the 102 of you who are still here watching this right now.
Mega.
Be back at 1 p.m. GMT. We're speaking to Abby Rogers this afternoon. She's a mindset coach. We're going to be building on this, like, imposter syndrome, I'm sure has been coming up during this session. We're building on that today. So we'd love to see you back here in about 2 hours time. And then, of course, Joe and I are back this evening at 8 p.m. and we're going to be doing the second part of our RISE framework training on finding clients, although you might be thinking about that in a different way after this session today. So thanks everyone for sticking with us. We will be back at 1 o'clock. We'll see you soon. Thank you, Pete, so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it both. Thank you.
Bye.